Hey everyone, my name is Rob. Welcome to my YouTube channel called The Movie Vault. Let's talk about movies. Hey everyone, great to see you back here on another video on the Movie Vault. Before we get into the main video, I just wanted to remind you guys that I do have a Patreon account. If you're looking for more content, exclusive content that isn't featured here on the main channel, you might consider subscribing to that Patreon account. Link is in the description if you want to help support the Movie Vault. Let's get into the main video. So I'm really excited about this one. You may know, I have mentioned it here on the channel a couple times before, I have been a huge fan of the wrestling, WWF, WWE, since I was a little kid. Many years ago, and I don't watch as much now as I used to, but I was recently sent this awesome Undertaker The Last Ride, the kind of docuseries Blu Ray to review here on the channel. Fantastic documentary, 5-part documentary series, docuseries if you will, and I just want to talk to you guys about this today. Let's quickly look at the artwork here. Of course you're going to get Undertaker on the front there, the purple and the white and the black. Awesome kind of artwork there. We have some photos and stuff on the back there, black and white, really nice. Inside, nothing special to talk about. The disc is black and nice and plain. No printing on the inside of the sleeve here or anything like that. But yeah, this is a really fascinating watch here. Let me give you some technical info on this. So as I mentioned, it's 5 episodes or 5 chapters, if you will. And there is some bonus features on this release as well. There's 5.5 hours of content on this. Absolutely crazy amount of stuff here, especially if you're a fan of the wrestling or the Undertaker. This is really an awesome release here. It's in 1.85 to 1 aspect ratio. It's a nice full screen picture, HD. I'm sure it was probably shot in 4K or something like that. You know, WWE they pull all the stops out for this one. Looks fantastic. Dolby 2-channel stereo audio on this, nothing more than that. I will mention this is a region B and C Blu-ray release, so this is just for Europe. This one, if you're in the US, you may want to check out the main WWE website to get a hold of this. So just to give you some backstory on this one, Undertaker The Last Ride, this kind of came onto the WWE streaming service called the WWE Network. It was kind of like, as I mentioned, 5 episodes, and it kind of aired over a period of time. Just some back info on this. This was filmed between 2017 and 2020. They use kind of interviews, behind the scenes footage, WWE match footage. It's kind of a perfect combination of everything for like a docuseries here, and it's an absolutely fascinating watch. I'm a big fan of The Undertaker since I was little, and really interesting to kind of watch this and get into the mind of The Undertaker or Mark Calloway, as we're kind of you know, he's kind of letting his personal kind of persona, if that even makes sense, come out in this one, and it's a really fascinating watch. Highly recommend. I'm going to just kind of break down each individual kind of chapter or episode, as they're called here on the Blu-ray. So chapter or episode 1 is called The Greatest Fear. This one runs 55 minutes long. This kind of, as I mentioned, this is, you know, it's all filmed from 2017 on, so it's kind of The Undertaker looking back at the loss to Brock Lesnar, the streak being broken at WrestleMania in 2014. He suffers the concussion, his confidence is lost, he can't remember the match to this day. His confidence is restored in his WrestleMania 2015 match with Bray Wyatt. They quickly kind of skip over the CM Punk WrestleMania match in there at some point. He discusses how he shouldn't have been in the Royal Rumble match in 2017. Fearing becoming a parody of himself. When should he step away is the big kind of talking point of this documentary series here. And his whole process to getting into WrestleMania shape, getting WrestleMania ready. He has to go through a bunch of you know, injections into his knees and stuff, which they all show. Backstage access has been granted to the WWE camera crew on this one, and this episode chapter kind of rounds out with the loss to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 33 in 2017. Chapter or episode 2, titled The Redemption, runs 60 minutes long. This kind of deals with the whole aftermath of WrestleMania 33, that loss to Roman Reigns. The Undertaker gets hip surgery, which is actually shown. You know, they're drilling into his hip, and you know, the operation, the surgery is actually filmed for the documentary. His WWE contract expires, and you know, all the kind of talk around that, and the build up to his WrestleMania 34 match against John Cena. Chapter or episode 3 is titled End of an Era. It runs 47 minutes long. Again, really interesting. The Greatest Royal Rumble pay-per-view is covered here. Undertaker makes a trip to MSG, Madison Square Garden. Is it the last time he's going to appear there? He doesn't know. Super Showdown in Australia, his match against Triple H is covered. The absolute disaster tag match at the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, Undertaker and Kane versus Triple H and HBK. It's all kind of encompassed in chapter or episode 3. We jump on to chapter episode 4. The battle within this one's runs 48 minutes long. The history of the Undertaker character is kind of discussed here. And what I found really interesting in this episode is Undertaker was booked to appear at like a convention called Starrcast, which was to do with the other kind of major wrestling company at the moment called AEW, and he kind of talks about having to cancel that booking and a bit of a fallout with Vince around that, which was really interesting. He doesn't have a match at WrestleMania 35 in 2019. He's backstage, all that is kind of discussed, his kind of frustration at not having a match and feeling he should have had a match. The disaster match at Super Showdown versus Goldberg, which nearly cripples the Undertaker, nearly ends his life. He nearly breaks his neck in that match. Madness altogether. And then kind of, we get to see a kind of a cycle of he wants to have a good last match. He has a bad match. He wants to redeem himself. He has a good match. Oh, I can do another match. He does a tag team match at Extreme Rules pay-per-view where he tags with Roman Reigns against Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre, and he kind of redeems himself once again. We jump into chapter or episode 5, which is called Revelation, 69 minutes long. This is the kind of wrap up to the whole docuseries here. SmackDown returns to Madison Square Garden, so he goes back. He's kind of trying to soak it all in case this is the last time he appears. He turns up on Stone Cold Steve Austin's like kind of video podcast, Broken Skull sessions. He kind of lets people in. AJ Styles, after seeing that, decides to approach Undertaker for one more match at WrestleMania in 2020. They kind of show Undertaker training and kind of, passing his knowledge on to trainee wrestlers at the Performance Center, which is really interesting. They start to build for WrestleMania 2020. Super Showdown is in there again. Once again, the prep and the training he goes through to get ready and to get in WrestleMania shape and fitness is all kind of discussed there. The build up with AJ Styles, he goes personal, talks about Undertaker's wife, Michelle McCool, who is also a wrestler. How he kind of combines the Undertaker character, the American Badass character, and Mark Calloway himself into kind of this like unholy trinity, I think he calls it, for the match at WrestleMania 20. Obviously, Corona kind of happens and how that affected the match. The match, WrestleMania was obviously supposed to be in an arena, and that all was cancelled, and it was done in an audience-less environment, if that makes sense, if you're not familiar with WWE and kind of like what happened this year. So they kind of decide to turn the match with AJ Styles, a Boneyard match, into a kind of cinematic match. So they just basically shoot a mini kind of a film instead of having an actual live wrestling match, which is really interesting. Undertaker's brother passes away the day before they shoot the match, and having to kind of deal with all that, actually shooting the match and the problematic kind of issues that come up with having to stop an actual kind of movie shoot rather than just a match that runs a certain amount of time at a live pay-per-view. And it kind of all leads to that's the end of the Undertaker's career. So just to give you an idea of a couple of names of who was involved in the documentary, obviously the Undertaker is in there. Mick Foley, Ric Flair, Bret Hart, Bruce Pritchard, Vince McMahon, Shane McMahon, Randy Orton, Jim Ross, Batista, Edge, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Michael Cole, Triple H, Michelle McCool, Bray Wyatt, Kurt Angle, HBK, Shawn Michaels, Mark Henry, Big Show, Scott Hall, JBL, Roman Reigns, Chris Jericho, Kane, John Cena, AJ Styles, and Jeff Hardy, just to kind of name a few of the interviewees in the documentary. I will also mention that there's about like 40 plus minutes of bonus extras on this, which is really, really cool. Tales from the Dead Man is 24 minutes long, kind of some kind of outtakes and kind of other stories from The Undertaker that they kind of use, some really cool kind of animation, cartoony type stuff with a voiceover by Timothy Oliphant on that one, kind of interesting. JBL's Memories of The Undertaker runs 2 minutes, Cryotherapy runs 3 minutes. Stone Cold Respect runs 2 minutes. Make-A-Wish Foundation Raw 25th Anniversary Show 6 minutes. Undertaker's Favourite Opponent 6 minutes. And What an Entrance runs 2 minutes long, which, as I said to you guys there, absolute crazy amount of stuff. Undertaker The Last Riot, absolutely phenomenal. If you have somebody in your family who is a fan of wrestling, great idea for a Christmas gift. We're kind of close to Christmas at the moment, and this is awesome. The critically acclaimed WWE Network docuseries. I really can't, highly recommend this enough to you guys. If you're interested in documentaries, if you know of The Undertaker, if you've ever watched wrestling, it's a really fascinating insight into the man behind The Undertaker and what he's kind of, what he's gone through in the last 3 years to kind of get himself ready and doubting himself and all that stuff. It's really, really awesome. If you are interested in picking up a copy of Undertaker The Last Riot, it is available right now. I'm going to have a link in the description, you guys, to pick this up from WWE UK. It's also available on Amazon as well. I'll have those links in the description. So that kind of wraps it up for my review of Undertaker The Last Riot. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't already, please consider hitting that little bell to get notified every time I post a new video here on the Movie Vault. As always, I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you on the next video.